when we enter into covenant, God takes it seriously.
That's right.
He doesn't just look at this as like a happenstance relationship. And it's funny, actually, I may have talked to teens about this a little bit on Friday. But if there was a married couple, and the wife, she woke up one day, she's feeling great. She's just like, her husband, talks to her husband, we'll say Jill and Bob. And she's like, Bob, I love you so much. I'm so glad to be with you, and I'm so thankful for our marriage. Awesome. Next day she wakes up, she's not in a bad mood. She's like, I'm not really feeling married today. so I'm not going to do this. I'll be back later. And just doesn't acknowledge him as her husband. Well, the word says that Jesus is our bridegroom and we're his bride. So we enter into covenant and that union with him. We're one spirit by him. And literally the price paid was the precious blood of the Lamb. It's far above anything else on this earth, gold, silver, anything. And it was such a price. We should honor him and act like covenant people. We're not just, even though we are believers in Christ. We are not just servants, even though we are. We are not just followers, even though we are. We are people who have made an eternal agreement with the one true living God, saying that I acknowledge the sacrifice of your Son. I acknowledge the blood that he shed, which redeemed and ransomed me from the power of the kingdom of darkness, and not only forgave me of sin, but was the one thing that could purge us, our conscience, and cleanse us not only from the sin itself and put the sinful nature to death, but the guilt that came with it, that weight that came with when someone's living in sin. So exactly, guilt, shame, and condemnation. It purges us of that. And it's saying, I acknowledge that. I acknowledge you, Jesus. I acknowledge who you are, the fulfillment of promise in that he was the only one who could be the mediator for this new covenant. But how awesome that he is, though. Because he's the one who died for us to be in it. So it's like, it's just like in Corinthians when Paul talks about, he's talking about how we can never be separated from the love of God. Who could bring a charge against us because it's him who justifies. The very one who intercedes for us is the one who died for us. The very one who forgives us is the one who died for us. And at every moment, our relationship with God is something that God will honor. And so, something that we talk about a lot in youth is that if we take God seriously, he'll take you seriously.
Amen.
And so you see that all throughout the Bible, not one time did he forsake his covenants. Not one time. He takes that very seriously. It's just like marriage, and we can see that, in society, the manifestation of people who don't honor or understand covenant. Because marriage is a covenant. And people get divorced left and right. It's all the time. But when we enter into that covenant with God, it's just important that we recognize it, that we live as covenant people, that we understand at every moment, God's in me, I'm in him, and every single promise in the Word is for me, not just because he's good, even though he is, not just because he's faithful when his word is true, but you can actually look and say, wait, no, he made this agreement.
Sure.
He put this together. He's the author of our salvation.
Yes, sure.
He organized the whole thing. And so it's not just man, I know some people may not hear Jesus' name, but some people may struggle in their faith, and they read and they encounter a promise, and they have to confront whether or not they're going to believe God for it. But how awesome is it that even just in his word, if we look, we know that he's not just going to answer it because he's good and true and faithful, but because he has an agreement with us.
Sure.
Like Jesus didn't shed his blood for God to be unfaithful.
Amen.
He didn't send his son to not fulfill what his son died for us to have. It wasn't for nothing. It wasn't in vain. And yeah, so I think the gist of what God placed on my heart is just live with an awareness of being in covenant. Live with an awareness that you have an agreement with God that he takes very seriously to the point of dying for it and rising again to give it to us.
Thank you.